Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Encounters with alien beings could happen at any time, anywhere. It's always unexpected. You know, a lot of skeptics out there always wonder why UFO pictures, flying saucer images, a lot of times they are fuzzy or, they're taken from a bad angle or they're not in focus completely because when these things happen, the people who experience it, the people who witness these things, they're just not ready for it. I mean, it just happens out of the clear blue sky and next thing you know, it's over with. And then other times, I mean, if you were to talk to people who get abducted by aliens, they tell you that they have no control over when these things show up. They know that they're going to show up at some point. I mean, if people who are abducted by these beings regularly, they know that it's going to happen again. They just don't know where or when or how or. It's some of them, it happens in the middle of the night when they're sleeping, and the next thing you know, they're being brought on board an extraterrestrial craft and examined and probed, and sperm samples are removed or eggs are removed, things like that. I mean, so the alien abductees really don't have any idea when things like that happen, and then there's just people out there who sometimes see these things or experience these things, or they never see it coming when it happens. It's just always a surprise. I mean, that's how it goes with these things. They call the shots. I mean, it's always on the aliens' terms on when they come in contact with human beings. We have no control over that whatsoever. We just don't. And this is actually an extension, basically, of what I was talking about in the last podcast, basically on how we're, compared to aliens, we're basically low-grade morons, and how, basically they could manipulate us, they could interact with us, and we don't even know it's happened. We have no idea, and that's because they're just so advanced, so much more advanced in every way, technologically, mentally. They're just superior. They are superior in every way in these aspects. So that's why when these things happen, when we do encounter them, I think sometimes it could be an accident when there's a UFO seen by someone up close or landed. For instance, sometimes there's been a lot of different cases like that over the years. Like, for instance, the Lonnie Zamora case from 1964 in New Mexico, where he came upon a landed craft, an egg-shaped craft that had a weird symbol on it that he never saw before. No one ever really saw before. And there were little diminutive beings walking around it. And then they get in it, they see him, one of them sees him, and then they get in that vehicle, and it takes off and then silently just floats away. I think sometimes there are accidents. I think that an accident happened to me in 1994 during the fishing trip I had with a friend. We were basically fishing. I've talked about this dozens of times on here already, but we're fishing at a spot basically in the middle of nowhere, where it was at a pond off a lake in a private community, at a gated community. And I am certain that people usually don't go to that place to go fishing. And I think, this flying saucer shows up, in the middle, in the black of night out of nowhere, and then we're standing there, amazed, looking at this thing, and then it just goes away. That could have been accidental. Like, sometimes people see these things accidentally. Now, the other experiences I had, the experience I had when I was a kid, when one of these beings showed up in my room, I don't think that was accidental. They wanted to, manipulate me in some way. I don't know when they wanted to interact with me, but they didn't want me to know it. But I think there was an accident made that for some reason I was awake for 20 minutes of that whole episode. And then you see all these other cases, like sometimes they, the Pascagoula, Mississippi, 1973, the two men, Calvin Parker and Wilson, or Charles Hickson rather. Calvin Parker and Charles Hickson were fishing, off a pier on the Pascagoula River in the evening. It was nighttime, and all of a sudden the flying saucer shows up, lands behind them, and these beings come out, drag them on board, look at them, do some procedures on them, and then drag them back off the ship and just let them there. I mean, or things like that. I mean, when they want to do these things, they can just do it at any time, anywhere. Those guys weren't expecting it. I wasn't expecting to see a UFO in 1994. The Allagash 4, those 4 guys that went on that camping trip in Maine back in 1976, and they saw a flying saucer and over this lake, and then 12 years later they all started remembering what happened. They had all had missing time, and they all started having dreams about being brought on board this craft. And of course they went to a hypnotist. They went to a psychiatrist, and they were hypnotized, and they remembered things and they all experienced being basically abducted by aliens from that craft, and it's always, you just don't see it coming. I mean, it could happen at any time. I mean, there's people in broad daylight, people who get abducted on a regular basis. Some of them report being at a picnic in the middle of the summer at a family gathering, and for some reason they end up losing time. They walk away from the picnic and they'll show back up an hour later, and they don't even know what happened. They don't know where that hour went, and then later on they'll see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. They'll be hypnotized, and they'll find out, well, there was a UFO, a flying saucer, landed flying saucer waiting for them. And they're and they're brought on board and had things done to them and then let go again, and they went back to the picnic like nothing happened. That's the kind of power they have over us. I mean, it's like the same kind of power, like if you're fishing, right? There's a trout in a stream or in a river, swimming around, doing what it does, looking for food, and next thing you know, it sees a little worm there jiggling. Right, the fish bites on the worm. Next thing you know, it's getting dragged out of the river. Has no idea, what's going on. And then the person, there's a human being, has no idea what a human being is, and the human being's holding the fish outside of the water, takes the hook out of the mouth, and maybe that human being's going to throw that fish back in because maybe it's not big enough. So he throws the fish back in, and then the fish, if the fish were able to communicate with other fish, that fish no one's going to believe it, right? That's just the way it is, and that's how it is with us, with human beings and these alien beings. And the thing is they could come at you at any time, anywhere, and you can't stop it. I mean, that's just how it is. They have that power over us, and no matter what and that's just one of the reasons I believe for the cover-up. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons for that, but the fact that there's no control over these things, we have no control, we have no authority, no law enforcement, no military organization in the world could prevent aliens from interacting with human beings. It's happening. It's been happening for years. And that's one of the reasons to keep this covered up, because a lot of people out there just, they won't be able to handle that information. Unfortunately, they're going to have to handle the information at some point here, because we need to get over that hump, like I talk about all the time. But just getting back to this fact that it just could happen at any time, and it's scary. It's scary to think that you could be driving in your car. I mean, how many different cases do you read about where somebody's driving down a lonely highway and all of a sudden there's a flying saucer flying over their car, or lands right in front of them. Or there's so many different cases like that have happened over the years. I talk about these different YouTube channels that I like to go to, where they basically provide a large collection of interviews with people from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, talking about their experiences with aliens and UFOs, and these channels, UFOB, Eyes on Cinema. I always talk about those channels because I like how they present that information. They give it to you basically raw. Just here's this segment. Here's a 2-minute segment of this guy from 1975 talking about his UFO experience. Here's another segment from 1990 with some woman who got abducted by aliens. I mean, you could sit there and just keep going through it one by one, and you see, yeah, I mean, these people are telling the truth. This is real, and they had no control over the situation. They weren't expecting it. It's always unexpected, right? You never know when it's going to happen. And like, I wonder, okay, I had 3 strange experiences in my life with what I believe. The first 2, no question, it was alien beings, and I strongly believe that the third one, which I was just talking about on my previous podcast, when I had an incident in Hawaii, like the first incident with the alien being in my room, that was what, 1977, and then 1994. What's that? 17 years later. It took, so I have one experience in 1977, then 17 years later, I have another experience where I'm out fishing with a buddy and a flying saucer shows up out of nowhere, right? So, and then to 1994, and then 2007 was when I had that strange, very strange, high strangeness type incident that happened in Hawaii. What's that? That was 2007. That happened in 2007. The other one was 1994. So that's what, 13 years? Yeah, 13 years. So I had incidents, that were many, many years apart from each other. And now 2007, that's look at how many years ago that is now. That's 15 years ago. Am I due? Am I due for another one? Well, if I am, I'm not going to, it's going to happen. If something ever happens again, it's going to be totally unexpected, just like the previous 3. And but I don't know how do you prepare for something like that? You really can't. You can't prepare. You cannot prepare for these kind of encounters. You just can't do it. There's no way you could prepare for it. And what are you going to do? There's nothing you could do. I mean, the control that they could have over you, they could. Basically, you wouldn't even know that they were just in the case of Hawaii, right? I didn't even know what happened. It took me a long time to figure out that most likely was an alien encounter. Apparently, I had a dog that disappeared. If you go to listen to my previous podcast, you'll hear that story. I had a dog that disappeared for 2.5 hours under very mysterious circumstances, and they abduct the dog for some reason. I don't know, or were they just playing games? I don't know, but for some reason they were doing something. They were interacting with me. They were interacting with the pet that I had at that time. And is something going to happen again? It scares me, the thought of it, because again, it's always a surprise when it happens. It just oh my God, what's going on? Every time when these things happen, it just catches you off guard, and it's hard to prepare for it. I mean, if I was, if someday I'm somewhere and all of a sudden something happens, I mean, am I going to be able to pull my cell phone? Like if I see a flying saucer up close and personal, like I did in 1994, am I going to be able to pull my cell phone out quick enough and get a clear video image of the event as it unfolds? I don't know about that, because I might be thinking, hey, I just want to get the hell out of here. Nobody, when these things happen, and that's what bothers me when you hear about skeptics complaining about, you don't have any evidence. Well, yeah, there is evidence, actually. There's trace, we talk about this all the time, physical trace evidence. There's objects, implants that have been removed from different people. There's video evidence, there's film evidence, there's photograph evidence, there's all sorts of different kinds of evidence. There's the evidence of the testimony itself from different people, the Ariel school. How could you deny it? So there is evidence out there, but they want something more for some reason. I mean, they can't wrap it around their heads that you're dealing with an intelligence that just, is so much greater than what we have. We can't. There's nothing we can do. They have the power. We have no power over them. They can't. Like a lot of people just can't accept the fact that we're just, compared to these things, we're dummies. We're just like. An animal rocking around in the woods right now to them. I mean, that's the kind of power that they have over us, and we have no control about when they're going to show up, and that's a scary thing to really think about, because you're always off. You're going to be caught off guard. Everybody is. Usually everybody. I mean, look at Travis Walton, for instance. All the famous cases. All these people, they had no idea that this was about to happen to them. Travis Walton's in the cutting down trees on a mountain in Arizona in 1975 with 6 other guys, and they're driving home in the evening, and it's dark out, and all of a sudden there's a flying saucer just hovering aside the road in a clearing. So he gets out because he wants to get a closer look at it. Next thing you know, he's getting blasted by some beam of light, and then he disappears for 5 days. It was all unexpected. Totally, absolutely unexpected. I mean, the only thing that, even the UFO crashes, there's been reports of numerous UFO crashes over the years, starting with Roswell. They're unexpected. We don't know when they're going to happen. We don't know when they're going to show up. I mean, maybe there have been occasions where somehow we were able to, our militaries, different militaries of the world were able to bring them down by shooting them down somehow. Maybe, I don't know. We don't have any evidence of that that we could really, talk. I mean, there's been talk about that kind of thing, but we really don't know if that's ever happened. But even that, the fact that even if, say, you were able to shoot one down, first it has to show up before you could shoot it down, and it's always unexpected. It's always unexpected. A lot of these flyers in the military right now, when a lot of these different reports that have been coming out, they're not, they're either going to see a UFO or they're not. Now, some people say they were seeing them every day at different points. But it's always a surprise. The aliens themselves are always holding the cards on these events. They show up when they want to. You can't conjure them up. You can't hope they show up. I mean, I know. Okay, we hear about Stephen Greer and having these big events where he has people sitting out in the middle of nowhere and then lights show up in the sky. Well, I don't know if I buy that. Okay, I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. I'll just leave it at that. I just say I don't buy that. How's that? I know there'll probably be some people out there that are Stephen Greer fans that won't like that statement, but I'm just being upfront about it. I just some people out there, I just don't know if I buy what they're selling. But the bottom line is there is something going on. Okay, there is something going on, and when it happens, if it hasn't happened to you yet. And it might not ever happen. And, I mean, if you're a person who has never seen one of these things or never encountered an extraterrestrial being, there's a good chance you're going to live your whole life and you'll never see one or you'll never encounter anything like that for the rest till the end, till it comes to the end. You'll live your whole life and nothing will ever happen. And then for other people, you're going to see something. I mean, you might be 10 years old, or you might be 50 years old, or you might be 70 years old when it happens. It could, for some people, it's going to be their first time, their first ever experience. And when it happens, it's going to catch them completely off guard. And the difference between experiencing these things personally, it leaves a mark on you. I mean, it really changes your whole viewpoint in a way that even the best of researchers can't provide. I mean, when you experience these things personally, it does something to you. I mean, it just opens your eyes in a way that somebody who doesn't experience these things could ever imagine. It's just totally different. But unfortunately, it's always the surprise of it. And that's the one part I don't like. I mean, I'd rather know. I'd rather know something's about to happen. I'd rather be a little bit prepared for it, rather than just surprise, because that's, and who knows what's going to happen. Are you going to get brought on some ship and experimented with? Are you going to be examined? I mean, I just don't know if I want to deal with something like that. I don't want that to happen. I don't want to be forcibly dragged onto a flying saucer and have aliens poking needles into me. I don't want that to happen. But that's what happens sometimes, and there's nothing we can do about it.